I don't really know what to say. My father was, we're no strangers to love. You know the rules. And so do I. Full commitments when I'm thinking he wouldn't get this from any other guy. I just want to tell you how I'm feeling. Try to make you understand. Never gonna give you up. Never gonna let you down. Never gonna run around and desert you. Never gonna make you cry. Never gonna say.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Biscuits with the Boss. This is our third episode where your unofficial guide to all things Ted Lasso. I am one of your hosts, Jesse Jackson. Joining me, as always, is David Miller.
Hello.
And Thom Zahler.
Hello.
So my boss does not watch TV, and we were discussing agents. I run a call center in my day job, and we were talking about really good agents and really bad agents. And one of the guys I work with is a big Ted Lasso fan, and so I looked over at John R. and said, "Yeah, and what we're going to tell them is, you're not a Rembrandt. What you do is you paint paintings that hung in Holiday Inns that cover bloodstains." And John D., my direct boss, started laughing, and he goes, "Yes, this is the one TV show I watch." So he is planning to grow a beard and cut it down to have a Ted Lasso mustache for Halloween.
Okay.
And I am planning to get brown goggles and be Leslie.
Nice.
Yeah. So, and one of the other guys could grow and could be Coach Beard. So we're already planning a Ted Lasso Halloween. So,
I love it.
Excellent.
yeah, yes. All right. Very quickly, let's go around. Remind everyone, Tom, who you are, a little bit about yourself.
Oh, I'm Thom Zahler, creator of Love and Capes, Time and Vine, and Warning Label, and I'm launching a Kickstarter this week, so that's a thing.
Yes, it is. And David?
I am a part-time podcaster and hanging out just watching too much Ted Lasso all the time. Too much time on Twitter, reading all of the interaction between the fans.
It was really cool to see them do well with the Emmys, wasn't it?
Absolutely. The main characters of the main cast taking home the awards, getting the awards for editing, for it just to be recognized was great. But to see the reaction from Goldstein and Waddingham and Sudeikis, it was pretty great.
Yeah, Tom.
Yeah, I feel like I don't watch a lot of TV that's up for Emmy Awards, although I watch Hacks, which also won.
Yes, I was really happy about that too, because I thought that was a very creative series.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's like the two series that I actually bothered to tap back into and watch one. So it was nice to know that that the thing that drew me in is also being recognized by everybody else, because it's just Ted Lasso is just such an amazing show. I don't know how they're pulling this off.
Yeah, and I really loved Hannah Waddington, the extreme love that she had for her fellow co-star, right? Like you just you, you know you it does not feel like there was any jealousy among the cast. Like they're like, okay, none we all can't win, so if any of us win, it's a win for all of us. So
Mhm.
yeah, good. Dave, quick thoughts about, we're going to cover 4 episodes today: Headspace, Man City, Beard After Hours, No Wedding and a Funeral. Quick thoughts on those 4?
It's a strong 4. I know there's going to be a lot of contention about Beard After Hours, this standalone episode. Some love it, some hate it. I'll reserve judgment and give my own thoughts in a little bit, but I
Okay.
think these 4 as a whole, really strong episodes, really propelled the story forward, and yeah, really excited to see where it goes in these last couple.
Yeah, Tom.
Yeah, I thought it's been like an amazing run. None of them have felt the same because they haven't all been about the football club. They've gone from being about a devastating loss to a Twin Peaks episode to, just emotionally rending Rick Astley loving funeral scenes. That it's everything has felt very different. Like I haven't felt, these 4 episodes don't make me feel stable. Everything is, it's a different type of episode. They all go really well together. But when I turn on the show, I have no idea what I'm going to see next.
Which is a treat. I mean, there is a lot to be. There is certainly comfort food in watching a Hallmark Channel movie, because the plot, what's going to happen, and so there is that comfort food that you don't have to spend a lot of time watching, but it is nice to be surprised and to be going. I agree. I thought these were really well done. I thought, and we'll get into more, but like I thought it was really creative to watch them just blow it at the semifinals. I mean, not just barely, like they just were outclassed. It wasn't their day. And no matter how good of a football team you are, or any sports, there are days when you're off. And to use that with Sam and Rebecca, I did not see coming. And I'm like, oh, that's very clever. Any thoughts before we move on? We're going to start with Ted and Dr. Shannon, but anything else that we're sharing about that? Anything for that? Okay. All right, Tom, start us. Ted, Dr. Sharon, their wreck, which was so surprising because I had seen this, and so Chris was piddling around, right? Like, and I'm like, no, Chris, I paused it. You need to be here watching. Okay, that's odd. All of a sudden he went, oh, S. Like, oh man. So I just think they, once again, and I can't wait to hear what you two think. This was a great payoff. We got to see where, Ted admits he needs help, then he can't share. He is horribly rude to Doc, explaining, and then she, when the next time he comes back, puts him in his place, I think really careful. And then their sessions and everything, then the big reveal about why Ted may be so optimistic is, and why he's so caring, is because of his father's suicide. So wherever you want to go on that, Tom, go for it.
Well, I like just the world building they're doing on the therapist, whose name keeps escaping me. Because I like when Ted starts taking care of her and goes to her apartment and you see all the bottles, and like just that makes her a much richer character than what we thought, because she comes in and she's very much problem solving and taking care of everything in a way that Ted can't. And they're doing a wonderful job in parsing out exactly how much of her we get to see. And it's making her be a much more interesting character, because already she's in a different TV show almost, just in the way that she talks. Like her emotional volume, as it were, is like a constant 4. and everybody else goes up and down except for Roy, who's like a really angry 7 all the time. But here, like we having her get in the accident on the bike, it makes it so much more interesting to come into that story and get thrown off as to how, you know, it's not just Ted and her having interactions that build the character. They're knocking you on your heels immediately, and it makes it a very interesting place to start telling the story from.
Yeah. Dave?
For me, I don't want to skip ahead too far.
That's all right. Well,
but for Dr. Sharon, when in this most recent episode, and he asked her if she wants some tea, and she says no, I think it tastes like a wet paper bag, and he was like, I'll tell you anything. I cracked up so much because that was the perfect. I mean, if they had had that interaction from the very beginning, I think he would have opened up immediately.
Yes,
and so
exactly.
That was a good payoff. And to find a British person that doesn't enjoy tea, I thought that was very, very nice. But going back to, you know, her accident and the way that that's portrayed, like that's the cold open, and then you flash into the intro, which is really upbeat. Man, it was kind of like, oh my God, what is happening here? And the way that it was shot, you were really worried that it was something very much more serious than it obviously turned out to be. It allowed it to propel the story forward and bring those two together outside of the office and have them have that communication. But really, you know, for that moment before you see what's happening, you're really worried for Dr. Sharon and what's going to happen to her.
I was very worried, and I was like, wow, will this show go in a different way? And also thought it's interesting, Tom, the idea that the different bottles and her feeling like guilty about it, like not necessarily that she has a drinking problem, just she doesn't let anyone into her home, and you know, and she has her own therapist, and she's talking about how frustrated she is, and I love that she's worried about biking being her happy place, and she be afraid now. And then there was a great scene of him walking her home and him playing all the like, oh, I'm going to keep all these voicemails you've left because they're just, you know, and she just is looking. You could see she doesn't like to be getting taken care of. And, you know, he doesn't like being taken care of. And so it was a really nice interaction. And when he has the panic attack in this last episode, which is so funny because he's all happy and he's getting dressed for the wedding and he's playing all kinds of fun music, and all of a sudden it hits and she's like, I'm here for you, Ted. What can I do? I mean, she's go. And then to have the thing, are you charging me for the session? Absolutely, I am, you know, because of the joke they had about her getting paid for it. I think that was a nice callback too, that he's okay with that now, and she knows that, you know, it isn't that he didn't want her to charge, it just was really funny, something for her to bring. I thought it was a nice closing. Dave?
When they're sitting there and she's in his apartment after he's had this attack, and like you said, you know, he asks her, you're going to charge me? And he's like, you know, I appreciate your integrity. That was a nice, like you say, it was a nice closing moment to that. And honestly, you know, not to downplay this storyline, because I think it's incredibly important, and you're seeing a lot of positive feedback for people who have mental health issues, and you're seeing a lot of that play out online, and that's become a big part of the discourse. And I'm glad that it's really shining a light on that. So I don't want to downplay this at all, but I do want to say that I hope that it's going to allow us to get to the point where we're able to move forward, and that maybe Ted has a little bit of closure and is starting to go beyond this. That's what I'm hoping to see in the next couple of episodes, that we see that kind of season 1 Ted where he's in a better place. And I'm hoping that that's what this has allowed.
Tom?
Yeah, I agree with that. It'll be interesting to see where they go with Ted, and the show continues to make me not know what's coming and feel off balance about everything that's happening. because jumping all over the place, the Rebecca and Sam thing, and even the moment where they watch Sassy go off with Ted at the funeral, and her mom says she really likes Wounded Birds, doesn't she? It doesn't make me feel like Ted's gonna stay with Sassy, and I don't know that she should. But like in any other show, I feel like I would know what they were aiming for. And this is, I don't know what they're going for, but they execute everything so consistently well that I'm not worried about it. It's just, it makes me feel uncomfortable not knowing what's going to happen, or not knowing what outcome I'm supposed to be hoping for. But also all their outcomes have been good. So I think actually the same thing happened with the Manchester game, where I never would have thought that's what was going to happen. I thought they were going to battle back. And honestly, I'm still not clear that they can't, because I don't understand soccer. Because they explained it like it was a round robin tournament, and I couldn't tell if they're still in competition or if they got totally knocked out or not in these playoffs. But there's no point where they're taking the easy path. And I will say though, the one question I have about Ted's jokes about, are you charging me for this, is like, I think they're funny and they work, but Sharon
Yeah, sure.
is working for the team. Like,
Yeah.
I don't ask the person at the cafeteria if they're charging me for the food because it's being paid for by my company.
Yeah.
So I'm told, because I don't work for a company and I don't know how that stuff works anymore. But like, I think she's on retainer.
I thought that too. I was like, what is happening? Why is that? Like, I mean, is this some side session that?
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
That's
whatever. It was just,
especially in a show that makes fun of, the NHS and having, you guys don't charge me for this at all. Like, well, why is she charging you? You're paying her.
Yeah.
That is a good. I had not thought of that. I did love I was love to see Sassy back. And yes, the thought about her liking Wounded Birds does give you pause that maybe they're not in game as, shipping, say.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm okay with that. I really like that. And I don't know if I know there's people talking about some fans like Rebecca and Ted should be together. And I don't see that happening. I mean, I trust these writers that wherever they take us, I'm good. But I kind of am pulling for Sassy and Ted, but I'm okay if it doesn't happen. That they seem to be good for each other. Mm-hmm. And that's a good thing. The other thing that I really thought was interesting, and I'd love y'all's thoughts on it, is Rebecca's confession about finding her father cheating on her mother, intertwined with Ted talking about finding his father. Deliberately done by them. But I didn't feel like they were hitting me with a hammer with it. Just very well done writing and editing. Miller Man?
For me, that's the one part of the episode that I kind of struggled with because of that cut, the way that it was done. And obviously the implication is that it all happened the same day, 4,000 miles apart. They are both experiencing the most traumatic thing in their life. And that's just a little too saccharine for me, where it just, from a story standpoint, where it's like, all right, it's okay. Did it have to be on the same day? Did it have to be where? That's the part that I struggled with. And now, I get it, but
I missed that it was supposed to be the same day. I knew it was the same experience, but I missed that it was supposed to be the same day. So maybe
at least I felt like that was the implication, because it starts, they both, it was a Friday, September 13th, 1991. Okay. And then it cuts, and then they keep talking, and it's like they're talking about the same thing. Maybe it wasn't, but that's the way that it was cut. And I did look it up, and of course, the writers were correct. The Friday 13th in September 1991 was correct. So, yes. But yeah, I mean, so if that was the way that it was intended, that part is what just felt just a little too much over the top for me, and that's where I kind of lost it. But from the acting, of course, next year's Emmy submissions, this episode can be used for both Jason and Hannah for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're amazing.
Tom?
I would think that it would be used for an Emmy submission, except I don't know what the next episodes have ahead of us. So
That's a good point.
I'm not gonna put that past them.
Yeah.
I thought that scene was amazing obviously from an acting point of view, but definitely from a writing point of view. There's no point where, like, I knew we were going to find out once we found out that Ted's father killed himself. I knew we were going to find out more about it. To overlay it with the death of Rebecca's dad was amazing. The back and forth was artful. I get what you're saying about them being on the same day, maybe being a little too much. I think there's leeway. I think they both happened on a Friday the 13th, but I don't completely know that they were both in September 1991, because you have years that have multiple Friday the 13th. Not that that's a big thing, because I thought that whole scene kept me off balance, and it kept it from being like a big Straczynski-esque monologue where Ted has to say what happened with his father. And it lets you skip over the boring parts. Not boring, but you're hitting the highlights in both stories and jumping back and forth. And you don't know when you're going to jump, and you don't know what's going to be the transition, but you see how defining these two moments were with both these characters. And I thought that was super interesting. And I was so very, very glad that Ted was at the funeral, and not in a bad way. Like, he didn't show up at the very end. Because Ted and Rebecca have such a strong relationship at this point, and they both watch out for each other's mental health, that if they would not have had Ted at the funeral in like a normal way for, didn't want him to show up at the house at the last minute or something like that. Right. He had to be at the funeral as a guest like everybody else. And he shows up a little late, but he's still there when he needs to be. And that also felt very satisfying, because there's no world in which Rebecca's father dies that Ted's not at that funeral.
Yeah. And I think let's skip ahead to that. I know I kind of gave us talking points beforehand, and we'll kind of move out of order. I thought the funeral was handled really well, including, the team all going and making the jokes. I maybe Rojas and the wearing dress shoes was a little too much. I saw someone say that it was maybe a couple too, like, you should have made that and moved on. But I love the idea, and the Isaac is the team captain, who did not have as a big role last year. And when Roy picked him, keep breaking televisions, has now blossomed as a true leader on this team and on the TV show, showing him, and him going, we're all going to wear suits. We're all going to be there. We're all going to be there, was really nice.
I just want to say, I don't have any hair, but if I did like you two, I would definitely want a haircut from Captain McAdoo.
Yes, 100%. Yes. That was such a great scene, and how the guy kept talking about him, right? Like, shh, like, you're breaking the mood. And then I did love the line where, and one of you may have it for your favorite lines, right? When, well, the only good thing about this match is how good Sam's hair looks, Yeah. That was great. First off, it was great to see Rupert again. I love Tony Head, and he's such a bastard there with the little one, and throwing it over Rebecca. And sometimes when you have daughters and mothers having a tough relationship, that can get old to me. I really liked this relationship, and I liked the mother saying, what, I'd rather you hate me than not feel anything at all about me. Any other things on the funeral, Tom, that you might want to share?
I love seeing Rupert back. I think they use him just right. I thought it was interesting that he gave the shares back to get rid of that plot line. And also, I want to know what he whispered to Nate. That is not going to haunt me for some time. Like, it was one step away from "Doesn't she look tired?" for those of you back Doctor Who fans.
Yes.
I think you're saying that him giving those shares away ends that storyline, and I don't think that that's true. And I mean, if we're going into the realm of wild speculation,
Yes.
you're only so what bothers me is this: he's a lifelong fan of the club, and he's giving these shares away, so something doesn't feel right there. The only reason that you would do that, he's not watching football anymore. Nope, I don't buy that. Even with a kid, with his there's nothing in his character that we've kind of heard about that would imply that the birth of this child would be just the most dominating thing in his life. What I'm speculating is that he has interest in purchasing another club, and so that's what he's whispering to Nate, like, you're going to be my manager. You're going to join me, something like that. That's what I see happening. Now, whether that happens in 11 or 12, I don't know, but that's what I see coming down.
I have seen that speculation online that somebody else had that theory, and I think it's a valid theory. But I do agree that was perfect that, he lets that go. And then, Rebecca was trying to follow her mom's advice about, like, act like he doesn't bother you. That's the only way that you're going to get, to bother him. And that was great to see him talking to Nate, and you go, what was that? What's going on? What's that? Thoughts of Rebecca and her mother? Tom, Dave, either one.
Oh, I thought it was really good. Because we saw them earlier, so you knew it was going to come back. I didn't think it was going to come back like this. It felt like a very natural relationship, and her mother seems stronger than we thought. Like, she seemed very flighty in her first appearance, and you see that's a choice in her part.
Yes.
Like, I like how things that she has done have been conscious, and people make fun of him, but she doesn't care. Like, she doesn't care that she hasn't changed Rebecca's room. She says when she loves somebody, she loves them all the way. She doesn't stop. I thought that was really interesting to see someone make internally consistent character choices that don't line up with what Rebecca does, but they're not necessarily wrong character choices.
Yeah. Dave?
For me, I want to say that, we've talked about how much trust and faith we put into these writers, and we absolutely do. But I have to say that I'm very, very, very upset with them, because there's a throwaway line where Ted is talking to them about the one time that he met her dad and he did a dance to make Rebecca smile. Well, we know that that it had to have been very recent, because we only met her mother recently. So it had to be in this really compressed time. And I wish we had seen that. Like, yes. I get that it's a challenge, but I like that there's this one thing that have happened, and it just builds the world more, but also it's a shame that we don't get to see that.
I tweeted to both of you, Rick Ashley tweeted how happy he was, and that brought me so much joy.
Yeah.
I just thought that was great, and very much, Four Weddings and a Funeral. There's a lot of they show their influences on their sleeve, and they don't hide their cards, I guess, and I love that. So it's very much Four Weddings and a Funeral, and having that influence, and they talk about how much they love romantic comedy. So that is another favorite movie of mine, and to have a different kind of sing along at the church, and
that's Love Actually too.
That is Love Actually too,
which is also Richard Curtis.
But. Yeah. And I agree with you, Tom, that having Ted there for her, and she, it was a great moment, because she told her mom, I don't know what to say about him. I don't want to speak about him. I'm so angry at him. I don't have anything good to say. And when you get up there, and and the priest had talked about how he was listening to the football game, and this whole, and for her to do Never Gonna Give You Up, was perfect, because they had set that playing the song earlier, and it was just a perfect kind of comeback. And for Ted to join it and the whole church to kind of do that was a really wonderful moment.
Yeah, I thought it was just I thought it was amazing, and I like the Rick Astley through line. I like as a creator, it is interesting to think of somebody licensing your work and then using it like that and not realizing that that's what they're going to do.
Yeah.
You know, they bought the rights to your song and they showed your video, and that doesn't mean that they're going to tell you what the episode is. And then to see them do that with it, that's got to be pretty awesome for him.
And it sounded like he's truly a fan already. So that
Yes.
was, that just helped.
Yeah. Well, kind of, we talked about it where Reba McEntire was just so thrilled that they used her name dropped her. So,
Right.
I mean, everyone loves this, the series. I thought, as I said, I loved seeing the team there. I loved seeing Sassy and Nora there, and Nora, when she finds out that, and we're going to talk about Rebecca and Sam, but when she finds out, instead of being jealous or upset, she's just, she compliments her with the bold ass bitch, our boss ass bitch, right? She's like, yes, it's so cool.
And I was tensed up about that when I was like, oh, this is where Nora's gonna find out.
Yeah.
And and I was like this, just watching it. And I was like, oh, and then they did it that way. And I was like, oh, whew.
Yeah. So let's talk about Rebecca and Sam. I mentioned in my notes, there is a very heavy double standard. He is younger than her. She is an authority figure. She is technically his boss. And if you switch the sexes around, this would not be as a charming storyline. And that's just the reality of it, because we have this double standard. I think part of the reason why this works is the two actors have great chemistry, and the two actors are both so likable. I don't know if I'm pulling for them together, and I will ask you the question: how can Sam become even more wonderful? We'll start with you, Dave.
Yeah, that was the thing that struck me, was when he said, I'm only going to become more wonderful. And I was like, how? I don't get it. That's it doesn't compute. But yeah, I mean, I think if I'm playing faux writer here, that Sam is here to help Rebecca learn that she can be loved and experience that wonder. And I think that Sassy is here to help Ted know that not everything is going to be bad. And I don't, but I don't think, I mean, in my heart of hearts, I don't think either of those two go together. And while I said it previously when we had our recap about season 1, and we talked about, I said, I don't want to see Ted and Rebecca together. Now I'm like, okay, yeah, by the end of the series, by the end of series 3, season 3, I can see that. I can see them writing it that way, but after they've gone through these individual journeys, and that allows them to grow together. And that doesn't feel as false or as put together to me. And I think I would appreciate seeing that.
All right, Tom.
Yeah, if they get Sam and Ted together, or if they get Rebecca and Ted together.
If they get Sam and Ted together, we got a whole different show, and I'm in on that too.
They could.
I'm in on that.
Yes, they could.
They definitely have to rearrange some furniture to make that work. Yeah. I don't like Rebecca and Sam. Okay, I mean, they have chemistry. They're a loving couple, but and actually at this point, it's not so much a double standard as a single standard. Because we're applying what would happen if it was, Rupert and somebody who played for him to Rebecca. There's just so much stuff in the way of this relationship that I don't think it's going to work. Like I can't see a way through. Whereas I can see a way through with Ted and Sassy, but they're just kind of setting that up as, this isn't going to last forever.
Yeah.
As opposed to they're front loading it with Rebecca and Sam, where there's so much stuff in their way. I can't see how they're going to make it through. So it just, I don't want to say it feels like it's taking up time, because I enjoy the scenes that we see, and I think they're growing the characters and moving them in a direction, especially Rebecca. But at a certain point, I'm like, yeah, but it's not going to work. Like, I don't see how it's going to work. I can totally be wrong, because the show pulls more rabbits out of its hats than anything.
Yeah.
But it's that dissonance between like, yeah, but this feels wrong, even for as charming and as delightful as it is. That wrongness is going to come back at some point, and I can't not see it when they're together.
I really love, though, that when they have the reveal at the restaurant, that who it is, and look, you're hungry, I'm hungry. And then, with the montage, right, they showed they're having a good time. They had a chemistry together, not just through online, but in person as well. And, she's makes the decision to text him not through the app, and he gives her an address, and when she opens the door, there he is, very charming, very rom-com-ish. I get what you're saying, Tom. It just does not seem like it's going to work, but I do hope maybe that, and I loved her opening of, you could really hurt me. Right. Like you're the kind of person that could hurt me. And I think that's an important part of Rebecca's journey, is to learn, we go back to where Roy said, you should not just settle for fine. You deserve everything. And so maybe this is all part of her journey. Anything else?
Did you read the, description for next week's episode?
I have not yet.
No.
Please.
I'm trying to pull it up real fast, but basically, the implication is that, here's what it says. A billionaire football enthusiast from Ghana makes Sam an unbelievable offer. That's the first line. And then it says Ted plans something special for Dr. Sharon's last day with the team.
Okay.
But if Sam gets pulled away, goes to a different club.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, that's something.
Yeah.
Whether, because it could, that's one way to quietly conclude that story.
Yes.
But I honestly, I have to think that the way that it was set up, the way that it was done, it feels too neat. And I don't think that we haven't seen them do anything like that. We haven't seen them just take the easy way out.
Yeah.
For the most part.
Let me push back. If Sam leaves the team, he's no longer an employee.
Yes, that's
so
true.
They can have a relationship, because then I just meant his boss.
Yeah, but like if he's like a enthusiast from Ghana, right? So if he goes to play elsewhere, I'm just thinking he's gone, and so that takes him off of our. But I don't. But for all that, I don't want the actor to leave. I don't want the character to leave. So that tears me, because I don't want that.
Absolutely.
But,
let's Roy and Keeley. I thought that Roy crowding her and then having Jamie give him advice, which was so strange. Right.
He didn't know he was giving him advice for relationship.
Yeah.
But yes, to see it come from Jamie for sure.
Yeah. Was really nice. I feel a little, if I have any issues, it's Roy and Keeley have been so in sync. I'm a little, it seemed a little weird that they were during this funeral and everything, that they would not be able to sync up again. That was just a little bit off to me. And maybe they were doing this so you could set up so that, Jamie could confess to her, whatever.
Right.
Tom, any thoughts on our couple?
Yeah, I thought the whole funeral thing was pretty brilliant, because Roy was still being very much Roy, and people are weird about funerals and death.
Yeah,
because it's death.
Exactly.
So like everybody was in character, but to have Jamie come, and we've seen him be the better person that he's been trying to be, and have that conversation with Keeley, and then for Roy to also be a better person, like, again, they're not guiding you through that plot. You don't know if she should leave for Jamie or if she should stay with Roy. They're not telegraphing what they want you to think. You're just seeing, oh, she's now got two really good people interested in her. And that's interesting because there's not necessarily a clear choice, because if Jamie is better, then he might be a better fit. I mean, I love Roy and I think they're a good fit together. And I don't necessarily think that they're going to break those two characters up, but you don't have the, sometimes TV shows will, when they want to break people up, they will give people an artificial like bad thing in their past or bad thing that they do that's completely out of character that makes it easier for you to say, oh, well, I didn't want you to stick around anyway. With this, they're both good guys and she's had chemistry with both of them. And like, I don't necessarily want her to break up with Roy, but like, it's not going to feel wrong if she does.
You know, one of the things that I want to hear what you had to say, David, but one of the things that I loved about the show Eli Stone is that they had a lover's triangle, and I liked everyone on this. In other words, like Natasha Histra, she played Taylor Hinsridge, was on one of them, and they had a lot of different relationships, and I liked everyone, you know. So I didn't feel like, oh, here's the good person and the bad person. And so I think it's interesting to see Jamie has had a good journey this year, and I loved his admitting the fact that I didn't just come back to Richmond to play football. I came because I'm a better person with you around. David?
Yeah, I mean, going back to kind of what started it with the episode and Keely and Roy having that discussion, my favorite line is "Avenge me, Keely." Like that's I love it. I love it so much. The thing for me is,
by the way, I love that line because it shows that he's not just being a jerk. Like he thinks he's being funny, because that's super funny.
Yeah, it is funny.
He's not just being lousy. He's playing, even if she's not playing the same game with him.
Right. Yeah, and I didn't know about the kid.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say, I didn't know about the kid. Okay.
For me, you know, Tom, you talk about she has that choice between two good guys, but there's the line that sticks with me basically from season one where I don't think that Jamie's the right one for her is when she was like, you know, I was 23 dating a 28-year-old, or 18 dating a 28-year-old, and now I'm 28 and I'm still dating a 23-year-old, or whatever the numbers were. And I just, for some reason, I just don't feel like she would go backwards in that way. I feel like it's more, I don't want to say appropriate, but just from a person standpoint, from the way that they set it up with, you know, holding it accountable, all that first season stuff was important. And I think that that's still there. And like you said, we've seen the times where, you know, he was a little too clingy, and then he got help and realized that, and he grew. And I just, God, I think it would destroy me if they broke them up. I really do. I love them together so much. I think it would destroy me.
Yeah, I don't think she would right now. I don't think that she would choose to go back to Jamie, but I think we'll see her tempted to go back to Jamie for some reason.
Yeah.
Or like Roy or someone will be a jerk or not available to her, and then she will turn to Jamie, and then Roy will see that.
Yeah. All right, so let's talk about Beard and Jane. And so Jane is one of the writers, correct? So you had shared with that. Yeah. I don't dislike the episode. I don't know if I would want to watch it again. And usually rewatching Ted Lasso makes me very happy. And so I've seen it twice. I watched it again with Chris, and Linda has not seen it yet, so I will watch it again with her. It's just very different. And I think the Twin Peaks, and I guess it's specifically after a Scorsese movie, I read somewhere.
After Hours.
Yeah. So let's start with you, Dave. Any thoughts on the episode?
When I first watched it, yes, I had the same feelings you are. It just wasn't my favorite. Do I dislike it? No, I don't. Do I like it? Nah, not really. And then I started reading some of the discourse online, and then I went back and I watched it, and I've actually watched it 3 times, and it's grown on me as I've watched it, because I think the parts that I enjoyed in the first go around, which I thought were few, have been amplified. I love the boys from the bar, that in everything that they're in. I mean, everything that they're in was brilliant and funny, and it just got better every time I watched it. And to see them at the end up on the field, oh yeah, that was perfect. One of the things that I read after I watched it the second time, before I watched it the third time, was comparing it to the Odyssey. And I was like, all right, I'm going to give it with that idea to it. And I watched it and I was like, okay, yeah. So it's the Odyssey, and it's this journey. And I know, like, there were more things that were put into it, and all of this references and everything that we don't all get. And I'm sure that our enjoyment of it would be much more enhanced if we got all of the references. But just enjoying those things, particularly the moments with the boys, man, I really loved it.
Yeah, I want to hear what you say, Tom, but like when they're asking him, you can ask me anything but a football, and Chris is like, well, they're going to ask him football, and they don't, which I love that. And then he's like, well, I have thoughts, right? Like, and then the whole about Vegas one night, by 3 is too many. That was really, really interesting. And yes, I love the payoff of them on the pitch, seeing it is where, going to Old Texas Stadium, or
Sure.
or playing catch on the Indians ball field, right? Tom, they're that magic of that, and that Beard thought enough of them that he did that was really nice.
And really, Renee is down there at all hours of the night, just waiting for somebody to come knock on this hidden door. Like,
exactly,
this is so fantastic. Yeah, it was so perfect.
Yeah, I love the episode from the moment I watched it. I am not smart enough to understand it. There's stuff that's going. The keys are super important, and I don't know what they mean. Yep. The moon is pretty important, and I can probably think my way through that one, but it's it reminds me of the dream sequence episode from Buffy, where it felt like, oh, we're going to learn what a lot of this stuff means later. I like the idea that Beard, the guys, when they wrote Pirates of the Caribbean, said that Barbossa and Jack are in their own movie, and everybody else just kind of comes into it now and again.
Okay.
Like they're very much playing on their own field. And I like the idea that Beard is on his own field, and that we don't know which things that happened were real and which things that happened weren't. Like when we saw the woman in the red dress, I didn't think she was real at first, and then she was. And then like when he shows up in the pants, some of it happened, but I'm relatively certain that the 2 sportscasters were not there.
Exactly.
And I don't think the one can get food at the club. That's only for him. And I also think, like, as opposed to the Christmas episode, which is a great episode, but just stops, this kind of has this, in Fantastic Four, the comic book, when they had the Galactus story, the next issue is This Man, This Monster, which is the super personal story between the two, between Reed and this guy who's pretending to be the Thing. And like, you follow up cosmic earth shattering with something super personal. And like, I didn't know what they were going to do to follow up that heartbreaking a loss. And if they had not done this episode, I don't think it would have worked as well, because this episode kind of became catharsis that more focused me on how weird everything was. And I think I needed to see the Benny Hill music played over the video, because if it would have gone from, and maybe that end tag would have shown up in the end of the episode if they hadn't done the Beard episode. But if they had gone from the loss to Rebecca's father dying, like, I need to see everybody decompress from the loss, and everything that was going on with Beard was dealing with the loss that they just went through.
So it appears after I watched the episode, I was like, okay, was Jane real? Did she see him there? What, are they back together again? And Chris had the same questions. Now it appears that the answer is yes, because, he's FaceTiming the funeral, which is a little bit weird, but they seem to be back together again. I do agree with you. All the questions with the boys are great. But I even like the joke about the jealous husband, like, oh, I need to give you your wallet and your phone back. And yes, why did he keep dropping his keys? I don't know. But it is, and I tell you what, it is funny watching Coach Beard dance to this rave music and losing himself. It was I do feel like in a lot of ways it was a palate cleanser to get us ready for this next segment of our journey. Any other thoughts about our Beard After Hours?
For me, so two things. The first, so the broadcaster, the one that got the food, Thierry Henry. So if you don't know who he is, he's one of the most famous footballers ever. He was a striker, a goal scorer, and he played the majority of his career for Arsenal. And he's considered the upper echelon, right? But when I first started watching football, soccer, Arsenal was my team. I did it because of Nick Hornby and anyway, so I really love Thierry Henry, and when he showed up, I was like, oh my God, this is fantastic. And then to see him kicking Beard was utterly funny. I loved every moment of that. Quick side note on that. So after he played for Arsenal, he played a few years at Barcelona, and then he played a few years with the New York Red Bulls. And there were a couple of matches that the Red Bulls played against FC Dallas where I went to go watch
Oh, how
Thierry
funny.
Henry. And so, so like I said, I just really enjoy him. And then the fact that he's on there and he's kicking Beard, and he's like, but there's one line in there where he's like, I want to be the one to help him overcome that fear. Like, he's consider suicide, like kill himself. I was like, oh my God.
I want to give him the pep talk that.
I want to give him the pep talk to do it. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe they wrote that for this.
Yeah.
Like, that's really 180 degrees from anything that you would expect. And so, I read something from Brendan Hunt that for the most part, those things were in his mind, were in Beard's mind throughout that evening. And so that part plays true to me. The other thing that I liked was the hula hoop. And I read that at one point, Brendan Hunt did a 90-minute stand-up routine while doing the hula hoop the entire time of the routine. And I would give anything to go back and see
hilarious.
that, because that would
great.
be fantastic. I would just think that would be the most just surreal. Like, why is he up there just hula hooping and telling jokes? And I can just understanding that just is a chef's kiss of the whole thing right there. Just I love it.
Great. All right, let's talk about Nate. He's, you guys have both, we talked about this in our earlier episodes, that we feel like he's on a journey. And I'm a little, yes, he did really well on that game, but and I guess they have tried to show us that Nate has a lot of talent as a coach and has done everything. I guess I was just, I much like the nicer Nate than I do the Nate that is mad about them giving a jersey, with the nickname on it. So I'll start with you, Tom. What's your feeling about Nate and everything that's going on?
I still think they're hiding cards on this one. and I like the Rupert scene really gets to me because Rupert didn't really know who he was. And I know he knows he's a coach, but I don't know that he doesn't know Nate well enough to say something unless he's had interactions with Nate we don't know about. And it just feels like there is going to be some episode where he gives the speech where everything makes sense. Because it feels like this started before we got back into season 2. Like his dark turn, we haven't seen him make a dark turn. He made it before we came back on.
Yeah.
Because you saw it with him saying, aren't their paychecks enough? And I don't know what they're doing. Like I can draw inferences about how he is with his father and how he's looking for validation. And now he's like protective of it and is seeking it out in the wrong places. And he's behaving the wrong way because of it. But I feel like the show is going to give us a much clearer through line for what's going on with Nate. And at this point, I feel like it comes at the end because everybody else's story, their catharses are happening earlier. So It feels like Nate's the one that they're gonna leave for the end. But yeah,
I'm gonna say 2 things. The first is 2 words: Anakin Skywalker.
All right.
That's Nate. He's Anakin Skywalker. And the funny part is like I picked up my kid from my ex-wife today, and my kid said that they got him started watching Ted Lasso. They'd never watched it before, and they'd gone back and they've watched the first 3 episodes from season 1. And my kid is like, I'm sitting there and I'm watching Nate, and I hate it because I know what he's become and I don't like it. And I love season 1 Nate. And I'm like, yeah, I get it. That completely makes sense to me. So yeah, I think, I don't know. I just, that there have been comments like this season is the Empire Strikes Back of seasons. And I don't know, that's what kind of made me think of Anakin and just this turn, this whole thing. So, if that's the case, maybe then season 3 is the redemption arc. I don't know. We'll see.
Okay. I hope so. I like that. I did love seeing how big of a jerk Jamie's father was, and the whole, Leslie saying, hey, he's your father, he's a VIP, and getting him great seats. And so Chris puts everything in terms of, NFL. He's like, your son's playing for the Eagles and you show up in a Cowboy jersey. He says, I grew up loving the Cowboys, but if my kid's playing for the Eagles, I'm wearing an Eagles jersey. Right. And just to have that, it just really bothered him. And to have Roy embrace him, it was a really nice moment because their history. I just thought that was really nice. Dave?
Yeah, that you're right. That entire locker room scene was so tense, from him coming in, his dad coming in and running down the team, and Jamie telling him not to, and then slugging him, and then Beard tossing him out, and then Roy knowing in that moment that's what he needed to do. I mean, you don't get that. Like when you go back and you see the first or second episode of this season where he was like, I think he's a little bitch and I hope he dies, the curable disease of being a little bitch. And then now to go and give him that hug, man, just that slayed me for sure.
Yeah, I love the payoff. I thought his father was a little too evil in the locker room. Like I could see him going after his son, going after everybody. Just like I feel like a guy like that who's clearly been in street fights, as we saw the next episode, could do the math well enough to realize where he was. And like him yelling at his son, like it was too.
You see that,
like it was too public.
The only thing about that though is that he's obviously a Man City supporter, and I definitely see a hooligan even having no fear going into some locker room and saying that, and he very much comes across that way for sure.
And I felt like he was a little bit not a little bit, he was very drunk. So
Yeah.
maybe
Mhm.
that was my excuse. But no, I get that, Tom. Yeah.
Yeah, it was just like I could see him having collateral damage with everybody in the room,
Yeah.
but it needed to be more like his rage wasn't entirely focused on Jamie.
Yeah.
And like I needed the rage to be focused on Jamie and everybody else to take collateral damage from it, but it felt like he was aiming at them as well in a way that just felt off. And also, like, we all talk about how evil Rupert is, but like for Jamie's father to show up with his gang to beat up Coach Beard, like I don't know if that actually happened because of the night it was, but that was the one scene that was like so coincidental that I have trouble believing it happened, but I also kind of believe it happened because he got beat up.
Yeah.
You know, we saw him get beat up. We saw that he was beat up when he goes in the morning, where it was just, you know, it was one step away from having Darth Vader show up at the, you know, breathing coming on to Luke Skywalker on Bespin. Like, it was just, you know, too evil almost.
Yeah. Anything else we haven't covered?
Yeah, there's something I was thinking of that I wanted to touch on, and we haven't given any consideration tonight to Phoebe and Roy. And one of the things we'll talk about, favorite lines, effing glitter. Just I laughed so hard at that, and Roy's delivery of the line, or Brett Goldstein's delivery of the line, F me. I mean, it was just the whole thing, that entire thing with him going to the school, and then can we have ice cream? I mean, the whole thing, and then the exchange between them in the car where he says he's not, you know, a good influence, and she, oh God, that all of that was so good, and I loved every moment of that, and I just wanted to touch on that part right there.
No, I am so glad you did, because I agree. It was, you know, I've told this story before, not on this podcast though. I worked for a company, and we had a VP named Mike Myers, who was, he talked about he was a sailor and from a German background, and he cursed just all the time. And so he was in a meeting, and after the meeting, someone came to him and said, "Mr. Myers, do you have a couple of minutes?" He goes, "Sure, what's going on?" Like, "Well, I really don't think someone as a VP in your company should be using language like you do." He goes, "Well, did my language offend you?" And she goes, "It did." And he says, "Well, then why the F didn't you say something?" Except he didn't say F. Roy is my ex-VP, right? Like, Roy has no thought about that. If I could, it's encouraged. And the idea that this innocent look, like me, I can't be the influence.
Yeah.
And as Chris talked about it, you notice they did get ice cream anyway.
Oh,
Even
yeah.
after he told her, there's no
yeah.
way his niece, he's not going to get her ice cream. Tom?
I love all the stuff with Roy. He's such a well-layered character. I love the relationship with him and Phoebe. It's one of the bright spots of the show. As someone with two god kids that I love desperately, there's a through line there that really resonates with me.
Speaking of when all of that was happening, that was the episode. Dr. Sharon is in the hospital, and Phoebe's mom is works at the hospital. Come on, was one of those people? Is that Brett's sister? One of the or Roy Kent's sister? Like, I just feel like that would have been the thing, or is going to be a thing. I don't know why it wasn't pushed through right there, but that's what I see, right?
The other thing I loved, and I don't have the lyric, I don't have the dialogue in front of me, but Phoebe called someone out, right? And Roy, like, "Is he?" And they're like, "Well, but that's besides the point, you know?"
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And you're right. You know, Dave, when she's like, "Effing glitter," you know, like, she just, you know, like, it's everywhere.
Brilliant.
It's just absolutely brilliant.
And so if Keeley and Roy do end up breaking up, Keeley's got to go for the teacher, because that's I mean, Roy's got to go for the teacher because that's just also
Yeah.
great.
That is just really, really nice. Yeah. What else did I forget to ask about? Anything else that we need to cover?
No, I think
Okay.
just favorite lines.
Yeah. Favorite lines. You want to start, Tom?
Absolutely, because I'm going to steal it from y'all. Avenge me. That's and it's such a great line because it's so funny, but it's also in character for Roy, and it's the kind of thing people say to each other.
Yes. Good. Dave,
Effing glitter.
effing glitter.
Effing glitter. Yeah, I love it.
I love the play the Roy is sorry for not understanding Keeley playlist.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
And I could not I love the 20 questions and they get it at the second question, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have to clean this up for the podcast, right? But the problem with Sam is his penis too big for your tiny vagina?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And I just I love Keely, Sassy, and Rebecca's and then the priest
Sassy
being mad at him. Yeah.
Sassy tearing apart Rupert.
Yes.
Like I'm going to wear red to your funeral.
Yes.
I will be the bright light of joy to the 3 people that show up.
Yeah.
Off and die, Rupert. God, that was so good.
And then just the whole the priest, like, keep it down, and they just couldn't. I mean, they were just laughing and laughing. It was nice. Any other lines you guys want to share? All right. David, if someone wants to reach you, how can they?
I am on Instagram and on Twitter at Blind Nello.
All right. And Tom, you have a Kickstarter starting.
I have a Kickstarter. Yes, starting on Tuesday. So I'm at Thom Zahler on Twitter and Instagram. And if you follow me on Twitter, I will doubtlessly mention it. You can also find me on Kickstarter, and there's a pre-release page for doing a print version of Love and Capes in the time of COVID.
Very nice. And I am at Jesse Jackson DFW. As we're recording this, it's toward the end of September. This will come out in the next couple of days. I just finished up my September anniversary month of 6 years of Set Listing Bruce. And so very excited about coming up. And so I appreciate it. We will be back in a couple of weeks we'll probably might wait till just the end of the season and do a wrap up. Any predictions you guys want to give for where the season's going? Tom, start with you.
I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm pretty sure I'm going to cry at the end.
David?
Yeah, like I said, Rupert comes back, buys another team, takes Nate. Sam ends up going to somewhere else, some other team. This starts to be the explosion or implosion of this group, and then we see how they grow from there. I don't know.
And I guess they all got big pay raises for season 3. Do you think they'll fall to pressure and try to do a season 4, or do you think they will kind of, hey, we're going to get while the getting's good? We're really proud of the work, because it seems like everyone loves this world. The creative people love being in this world.
If I had to put money on it, I would say that it would end at 3, only because I think Jason Sudeikis wants that. I think he knew exactly what he wanted from the beginning, and I just don't know that he would succumb to having just the money be the deciding factor. If there was something else they wanted to continue on, if there was a story they wanted to continue, then maybe, but I don't think it's just going to be because of the success and the potential money. I just don't.
Bill Lawrence is the guy who, when they asked why he did Scrubs Medical School, said it's really hard to say, no, I don't want to employ 200 people. Yeah. So I think they're going to think about that, but they're doing it early enough. Like, I don't think it'll run for a long time. I think what they will either do is figure out how to make season 3 into 2 years, or figure out how to lay the groundwork for like a real natural spinoff. Because I think the actors and writers like each other, given the fact that so many are both writers and actors.
Yeah.
I think they all get along. They also realize they have lightning in a bottle, and there's a point where you don't want to stay at the party too long.
Right.
But it's the kind of thing where I think it will be a creative decision. If they can figure out a way to get one more year out of it and still do what they were trying to do, I think they'll do it. They're not going to do it just for the money, but they're not going to say no just because they had a plan in place. I think they'll look at it honestly to make that decision.
To your point, I think that's exactly correct. If they can find a way to continue stories about AFC Richmond without Ted Lasso, but have that same heart, that same core group of characters, and whoever else they could bring in, I could absolutely see that continuing on, and that would allow Sudeikis to step back if he really wants to stay with his family, etc. And Bill Lawrence can run that writer's room, and Brett Goldstein can continue on, and whoever else wanted to as well. Because I'm in, they've got me for sure.
And I think Lawrence is the one that tweeted, or someone tweeted that Apple told us in advance it's 12 episodes this time. Like,
yes.
So they, which I think is funny. That's good. All right, listeners, thank you so much for listening. Go get vaccinated. Go, please be good to each other. Check out Thom's Kickstarter, and we will talk to you in a couple weeks. Goodbye.
See ya.
Gonna say goodbye. Never gonna tell a lie and hurt you. Never gonna give you up.
Never gonna
let you down. Never gonna run around to search you. Never gonna make you cry. Never gonna say goodbye. Never gonna tell a lie and hurt you. Never gonna give. Give you up. Never gonna give you up. Thank you.